Always a pleasure to welcome Mr. Boxing in Calgary, Michael Short, to the program. Mr. Boxing, how are you today, sir?
Hey, Peter, it's a great day in the crypto market. Everything's recovered, and I'm about to talk boxing with you on a Thursday night. So what else could be better?
Right, exactly. The sun is shining, birds are chirping, and people are punching each other in the face. It's a
Yep.
beautiful, beautiful time indeed.
All the stuff we love.
Yeah, exactly. We're supposed to be gearing up this weekend for Teofimo Lopez. That is not happening now. That's been pushed a couple of weeks anyway. But I mean, never a bad time to talk about one of the best fighters on the planet, coming off of a huge 2020, where he picks up the biggest win of his career that really kind of rockets him into the mainstream. What are you expecting to see from Teofimo Lopez in a couple of weeks when we see him once again in the ring?
You know, I'll be quite honest with you. I didn't know much about George Kambosos. I've never heard of him before. He's actually a junior, so I don't even know anything about senior. But I had to look him up. Usually, you ask me a question about a fighter, and I know the stats. I know who they fought. And this guy I've never heard of before. So he's a homegrown guy in Australia. He's got a pretty decent record, 19-0, and looks like he can punch a little bit. Biggest name I saw in his career was maybe Mickey Bay, former Mayweather Promotions fighter, and maybe he's decent. But it's a chance to see a really thrilling competitor in Teofimo Lopez. So he's obviously made his mark by beating up Lomachenko. Did stuff to Lomachenko nobody has ever done in 400 amateur fights and his 15 or so professional fights. And he put a licking on Lomachenko. So I always look for fireworks from Lopez. And, this kid, George Kambosos, he's homegrown in Australia, but so was Michael Costillas. And he was a warrior. So you never know what you're going to get. Triller is the promoter. They're doing a great job with getting these guys really, really big salaries. So I don't know. Well, it's an event to tune into. And I think it's going to be exciting no matter what happens as the result of the main event.
Yeah, I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see Lopez and just to see him in the ring again. And anytime you get an opportunity to see one of the best in the world, you take that opportunity. But I'm also interested to see what Triller is like here with a legitimate boxer that they have on their network. Both Paul brothers are now fighting on Showtime, which hurts to even say. So that's not their thing anymore. You have Jim Lampley going to be on the call, who is as serious a boxing guy as there is. I'm interested to see if Triller kind of goes the serious boxing route, or if you can have weed smoking and partying going on while also having one of the best fighters in the world and one of the best boxing commentators of all time calling that fight. Like it seems like a styles clash that I'm not sure how that's going to play out.
Maybe this is how they're making their bones. Okay, so they started off, obviously part of this show is still going to be the music in between fights and all that kind of stuff. They're an entertainment app is what they are. So they're attracting the non-fight fans. They're not just attracting people that want to see boxing. Okay, so they're attracting a lot of entertainment people, TikTokers, whatever it is these days.
Right.
But my fear is this: they're paying Teofimo probably at least triple what this fight is actually worth. So if he were to fight this fight for Top Rank, I think he'd probably make 1.5, maybe 2 million. For Top Rank, he's getting paid $6 million for this, and it's not it's not the most dangerous fight in the world for him. It's not a super fight such as Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, any of these guys. So he's so let's give it to the promoter. They're obviously found a way to keep paying these guys what they're paying. They pulled off a pretty good show, with the Mike Tyson, Roy Jones thing, and they put some entertainment in. I could have done without the in-between fight stuff, but that's the other audience I guess they're attracting besides the fight fan. Now they're going into a legitimate boxing match, world championship boxing, Jim Lampley, all that stuff. So yeah, they're making their bones, and hope they stick around and raise the bar on what's going on in boxing.
When doing research for this fight, all the stories that I saw were already talking about Lopez's next opponent. Like there isn't a whole lot of, oh, what is he going to do? It's like, well, he's going to win, and then he's going to fight. As a trainer, when you have a fighter who is supposed to be a rather significant favorite going into a fight, how difficult is it to kind of keep their focus on the here and now? And for Lopez, like the beyond this point are some, not that this isn't, as you talked about, he's getting paid, but beyond this are some major mega fights and mega dollars up. Is it tough to keep a guy focused on a fight like this when you know bigger ones are to come?
No, it depends on the trainer, really. You know, if you're a proper trainer, not a cheerleader, you're going to put it in your guy and say, look, you know, you're going to do extra for a guy that you're expected to beat, because everything goes away if you lose to that guy.
Right.
So, you know, some of these younger trainers, coaches, kinesiology majors that are now boxing coaches, whatever they may be, yeah, they're going to look past a guy like that. They're going to say, yeah, you know, easy work, knockout, you know, second round, first round. And all of a sudden you're there in the 8th round and he's like, coach, what happened? So, yeah, a sophisticated trainer, a proper trainer, he's going to take this kind of a fight very seriously. And that's what Lopez has. You know, he's got people on his team that, you know, for sure he's going to take this serious. So, I speculate, this is just pure speculation. Peter Klein is the manager of George Kambosos Jr. And Peter Klein has also been engaged by Triller to take over the boxing. He's a very decent level manager, so he has a lot of fighters. I think 5 or 6 fighters signed to Top Rank, and he's got some very talented fighters. So I suspect that maybe that's how Kambosos was singled out and put into a fight like this against Lopez, because it is a Triller show, and Peter Klein is calling the shots with a Triller and taking over their boxing. But that also brings a lot of legitimacy on the boxing side into Triller, having Peter Klein take over. So box rec him after the show, and you'll see Peter Klein and which fighters he has and stuff like that. And you'll see, you know, he's a decent level manager, very well connected guy, and so he will do some very serious action fights coming up soon, I'm sure. Especially with all of these lightweights that are kicking around now. Even Jorge Linares, you saw.
Yeah.
You know, we'll talk about it later, but you know, Linares is not done. I mean, he's still got some juice left, and you know, different kind of fight last weekend for Devin Haney.
Right. And yeah, let's get into that fight now. And I thought when you were talking about how like you have to do extra work in these fights are expected to win, because if you lose it all. Even if you don't win impressively enough, sometimes, I don't want to say you lose something, but Devin Haney comes out of this weekend having to answer to criticism on social media saying, if I knock a guy out in 5 seconds, then you think I'm taking 2 easy fighters. If I go the distance, then I'm not doing enough. Kind of like you guys just let me know how I'm supposed to be, and then I'll be that. That has to be incredibly frustrating for a Devin Haney who, as we talked about last time, is one of these guys who is on the ups in a very exciting division. What did you see from Devin Haney this weekend?
I was quite impressed with his performance. You know, like I would say he got about an A- B+. Maybe even giving him an A score for that performance. You know, he's in there with no joke. Jorge Linares was no joke. This is a 3-division world champion. This guy is legit. He knocked Lomachenko down. Lopez didn't do that. He couldn't knock him down. Like, this guy is serious. You got to understand too. Linares was looking at this fight. It could be his last hurrah, his last opportunity to fight for a world title. He's going for it. Things are different in boxing because you fight so few times. Your competition is so few times per year, especially at the elite level when you're up at world championship boxing. You know, let's say you do 3 or 4 fights a year at the world champion, and that's a pretty heavy you know, schedule. You are different physically, mentally, emotionally every single time you get in there. So is your opponent. And I'll give you an example. You know, this is just a made up cliche story because, you know, I'm a promoter, matchmaker, and agent in boxing. You get a guy that's 2 wins, 11 losses, and every single time he gets knocked out. Okay. So he lost 11 times in a row, all knockouts. And your guy is fighting him. Your guy is, 5-0, 5 knockouts. And you're thinking, oh yeah, easy work. This guy's a stiff, 11 knockouts in a row. We're gonna get this guy. No problem. No, maybe you take your foot off the gas. Maybe your fighter doesn't take it serious. He's already planning what he's gonna do at his after party. Hey, make sure when I'm in the ring, you get me with my hand held up. This is his focus in the dressing room.
Right.
What you don't know is this guy's wife called him a bum. Hey, you know what? You're a bum. Why don't you just stop boxing? Go get a regular job, become a bus driver. You're a bum. You're a loser. I don't even know why I'm married to you. And this guy decides, you know what? I'm going to show this woman. This time he trains. He stops smoking. He stops drinking. He all of a sudden takes a new look on life, and he comes out and he knocks your guy out in the second round. And then you're standing in the dressing room saying, "Oh, what happened?" And this is boxing. The Calgary Flames, they can lose in Edmonton, 5-0. They can come back to Calgary the next night and they can beat Edmonton 5-0. But they get that opportunity immediately, immediate rematch. You're always playing. In boxing, you're not. So this is what goes on. It's just it's how trainers deal with their fighters, and it's how fighters believe certain things when they're going into a fight, and that either helps them or destroys them.
Yeah, I never get the criticism of someone winning. And at the highest levels, if you're starting to split hairs a little bit, if you're going between one guy or another, then maybe fine. But a win's a win. Like, it's still a fist fight. Like the other guy is still in there trying to not get hit in the brain a bunch. So that the other person in there has something to say about it too. And I never get the criticism of someone like that where, oh, well, they won, but was it impressive enough? So yeah, they won a high-level boxing fight. Like that in itself rather impressive. So I never understand that kind of criticism.
Well, it's world championship boxing. Linares deserved to be in there. He was a totally legit guy. They were telling us leading up, this is a huge step up for Haney. So now why you're trying to downplay what Linares did, and how, let's face it, Haney reacted quite well. Look at Garcia, Ryan Garcia. He made some comments on Twitter and stuff about the performance, saying, "Oh, I would have slept him. I would have taken him out of there if I fought him." Luke Campbell is not a killer. He's not a big puncher, nothing like that. He decked Garcia.
Yeah,
badly. That could have been a knockout, not just a knockdown. Haney, like, in my opinion, I thought he was falling in love with his power a little bit too much. He was loading up a little bit too much. I saw him, like, every single shot he was putting juice into it, and I just thought, like, man, I don't know how long this guy can do this for. Like, all of a sudden it's round 8, 9, and I'm starting to question, like, maybe he can do it all night. Like, he's looking pretty good. Like, he's all of a sudden, in the 10th round, I think it was, he opened up, got a combination on his head at the last few seconds, and it hurt him. Linares knew it hurt him because he kind of swept away, he made way for him to stagger back to his corner. He knew.
Mm-hmm.
But, look at the work that Haney did leading up to that, though. That's why Linares couldn't get him out of there.
Yeah.
Because Linares got, a little bit tired. He had a lot of body shots on Linares. He hurt him a few times. Like, he put a licking on him, too. But Haney, like, last 2 rounds, all he did was reach out and grab. Like, he couldn't even box anymore. He was still hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So it is going to take him some time to recover from this and get back in there. But let's face it, I give him an A-, maybe an A. And I think he did a really good, strong performance against a true veteran. And he showed what he's made of, championship level fighter, for sure.
It almost seems like, I don't want to say a teachable moment, but it almost seems like something that a cornerman, and every fighter is different. Like, one guy reacts differently to something that another guy would, but it almost seems like a cornerman could be like, see what they're saying about you? Like, you go out there and fight a world-class fighter, and this is what they're saying about you. Better train even harder for the next one. Like, you can almost use it as motivation for the next one.
Yeah, and that seems to be a little bit of the pressure that's on these guys. Devin Haney, not so much, because he's not a big TikToker or Instagram type guy, but some of these other ones are. like Ryan Garcia. He shut down about a month ago where he says he's got to back out of this fight because he's his mental health is at stake, but he's losing it. And in one way, a lot of people are going to call him out and say, oh, pussy, whatever. They're basically going to call him out for that. Some other people are supportive. Even his opponent was supportive, saying, you know what, get well soon, right? Because it is.
Yeah.
And I suspect maybe a lot of that comes from the pressure, like that. All these TikTokers, you get these fanboys. They don't really know anything about boxing. They're not boxing fans, but they're Ryan Garcia fans, and they're like, oh yeah, you're gonna kill this guy, go get him. And they don't know anything. Knock him out, hit him with a flying armbar. they don't know anything about boxing, so right. Then they're just going to be fanboys, fangirls, 14-year-old girls following them and stuff. And so maybe that puts a undue amount of stress and pressure and anxiety into him, because let's face it, he got knocked down last time. That could have been a knockout. All of a sudden, he's starting to step up in fights and competition. These things aren't just peachy keen anymore. It's the real deal. It's actual boxing. Your opponent, nobody knows him on TikTok. Nobody knows him on, Instagram and all that stuff. Right. But the boxing world knows him, and you sure know him, and you know what he's capable of. And so that's what's going on with these guys, getting a lot of pressure that way with social media, and so.
Yeah. One fighter who said that mental health was a bit of an issue for him, and he was able to very much overcome it. And on this next kind of chapter of his career is Tyson Fury. It looked like we were getting Fury Joshua right up until we weren't. And then Deontay Wilder is stepping in. A couple of years ago, this was the biggest fight in the sport to make, and now people are almost disappointed because we're not getting Joshua thrown into this mix. That's kind of how spoiled we've been in the heavyweight division the last little bit. But the trilogy fight, it appears it's going to be happening now, Fury versus Wilder. We'll have more time to break this down later, but just I guess your initial thoughts on another edition of a couple heavyweights going to be in there slinging it.
Yeah, like I said earlier, every single time you're a different fighter, physically, emotionally, and mentally when you get in there, and so is your opponent. So even in a trilogy match, or like a four-time fight series, you're going to be different every single time. So you can't write Wilder off just by saying, "Oh yeah, Fury beat him easy last time." It's not going to happen. Fury's different. He was focused on Joshua. He says that fight is still going to happen this year, 2021, even if it happens in December. But now he's got to take care of business with Wilder, and now the pressure's on him because everybody in the world thinks he's going to knock out Wilder again. He's got this humongous payday looming. I think it was splitting $155 million or $150 million is what they split. $5 million for the undercard and the show. So he's got a big payday looming to fight Joshua. That's the fight everybody really wants to see. Nobody really cares so much about the rematch with Wilder, but there's a court injunction. Wilder won it, and they're going for the fight. That tells you, if you know Wilder's story too, his background of how he started boxing, it tells you what kind of intestinal fortitude, mental atmosphere this guy has for sports, for life, for everything, and how to approach life. And yeah, Fury did it too. Fury, he came down from 400 pounds. He was depression. He was, he was terrible, and he reinvented himself. So they're two very strong mentally athletes, obviously physical. They're both specimens. They're fantastic punchers, boxers, everything. So you can't look past this and go looking for Joshua right away. And I think Fury knows that. I think that he understands he's got his back up against the wall. He's forced to take this fight, even though it's probably not what he really wanted to. So Wilder coming out and asking for it the way he did and demanding it, even though he got pretty wrecked the last fight, it shows you that he's a different guy this time going in, and he's going to be, he's going to be there to fight. He's going to be there to win, and he wants that $75 million to fight Joshua.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, if Wilder wins, do you think he just slides into that spot and we get the Wilder Joshua fight that we've talked about for a long time, or no?
Not automatically. So obviously Joshua is the A side in that equation. The fight has to make sense. The negotiations and all that kind of stuff. So when they say a fight is somebody puts out an Instagram post or a Facebook post and says, Manny Pacquiao is fighting Devin Reddy. You don't really know if that is set yet.
Right.
Until you start seeing promotion happen, until you start seeing, guys get on airplanes and go to New York City and do press conferences, and now they're spending money and now they're promoting. Just because they signed the contract, even, it doesn't mean the fight is going to happen. It doesn't mean it's for sure going to go. So it's not an automatic thing, but it could have purpose to make sense in boxing to say, well, look, you're supposed to fight Fury. Wilder knocks out Fury. Take on Wilder instead. And that's a possibility. But, there's other guys out there that might want to take a chance at this. Dylan White, I don't know.
Yeah.
The heavyweight division is not fabulous, but it's pretty decent just by having Fury, Joshua, Wilder. It makes it a really, really exciting type of round robin that you could have.
Yeah.
And those are the fights that we want to see, stuff like that. But those guys really carry the torch. I love Tyson Fury. I love his background story. Anybody out there that doesn't know Tyson Fury's background story with the depression and the weight gain, massive weight gain, and how he started and how he came back, it's reminiscent of a little bit of Shannon Briggs. And the other one is Wilder's story. His kid had some debilitating disease and he needed to make money. So he took up boxing. And his goal, I'm going to win a heavyweight championship of the world. I'm going to be able to pay for my kids' treatments, my kids' medicine, all this kind of stuff. And he saved his kid. That was why he started boxing. So this guy knows how to set goals. He knows how to reach them and set new goals, which is what this is with Fury.
Yeah.
He knows if he loses again to Fury badly, who knows? Where does he go from there?
Right.
Fight Evander Holyfield, it's like, what's he going to do? So he knows he's coming, and hell's coming with him for sure.
Yeah. It's part of what feels like. It feels like when you look at the boxing schedule, there's just good fight after good fight basically every week for a while. And then you look at what could be coming off of those fights. Like this, I don't even know if there's a question here. It's just kind of like, it feels like a great time to be a boxing fan, right?
Absolutely. The Devin Haney fight last weekend, there was so much excitement leading up to it. It was just a really fun night to sit and watch this stuff. Like, it was just fantastic to, the whole thing with the crowds being back in boxing now, all of it's just getting really much more exciting. There's lots of names coming up, lots of good matches that are being made. And I think fighters realize they have to fight live opponents. They're not going to get by anymore, just, picking and choosing and trying to be Floyd Mayweather. Oh, I want this, 154 fight, but I'll fight you at 149 and a half. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
So these guys, they're being pushed. That's why I like the young guns, the Devin Haney, the Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko, Linares, all these guys. Put them all in the mix together. I like them because they're all calling each other out. They want to fight each other. They want to fight tough fights. They want to prove that they're the best. It's becoming exciting again to see real fights happening where you go in and you're not knowing exactly who's going to win. Remember the Mike Tyson days?
Yeah.
I mean, the only betting odds were the over/under. Does this slob last 4 rounds, or is it under 4 rounds? And that's what a Mike Tyson show is all about. Now boxing is like, these guys are carrying the torch. It hasn't been proverbially, passed by anybody because there's nobody left to really pass it on. But they're picking it up themselves, and they're carrying the torch, and they're making their own path. They're making boxing their way, and they're doing it. Tyson Fury's his own guy. He's been influenced by a lot of greats, but he's his own guy, and he's made his own shtick. And people love him. I love Tyson Fury.
Yeah, no, it's a great time. And yeah, just doubling back to your point from before, there's an amazing documentary in there someday to be made, because that is quite the story for Tyson Fury. Mr. Boxing, thank you very much, sir. As mentioned, it's a very fun time in the sport of boxing. So we'll have a lot to talk about again soon, I am sure. And looking forward to when we can get this stuff back in Calgary as well.
Right on, Peter. Thanks for doing these.
Yeah, of course.